evening, everybody. Welcome to the open house for the proposed 2023 general budget. I'm Doug Holmes, Mayor of Summerland, and I'd like to recognize the councillors in the room. We have, just maybe put up your hand, Aaron Trainer, Richard Bardwell. I saw Janet Peak here. Where's Janet? She's hiding back there. Am I missing anybody? Oh, Adrian Betts is here as well. Oh, there she is, way at the back. Okay. And so then our CAO, Graham Staff, is here as well, and senior management. I'd like to thank all the staff here for volunteering their time this evening to come out and help out with this evening. The general budget covers most of the municipality's responsibilities. Things like roads and sidewalks, works and infrastructure, parks and recreation, garbage and recycling, planning and development services, fire departments, the RCMP, and bylaw enforcement. Just about everything other than water, sewer, and electricity. Those three utilities each have their own budgets, which are supported by your monthly utility rates, whereas the general budget is supported primarily by property taxes and user fees. The utility budgets were presented at a virtual open house in early December and were passed by council just before Christmas. Since then, we've turned our attention to the general budget, which is what we're going to hear about today. The budget is one of the district's most important documents. It serves as the blueprint for how we collect and allocate the financial resources needed to achieve council's priorities and policies. While our strategic plan, or strategic priorities, set out council's vision for the full 4 years of our term, the budget breaks those priorities down and considers how they'll be paid for and implemented on an annual basis. Municipalities are legally required to maintain a balanced operating budget. We can't run a deficit like the provincial or federal governments. We're able to borrow money and incur debt for major capital projects, but debt servicing costs must be accounted for in the operating budget. So even before starting our budget discussions this year, we knew we would require a 2.12% tax increase to service the new debt incurred for the reconstruction of Giants Head Road. That project had already received public assent through the what they call the alternative approval process. We also knew that utility rates were increasing for most people, and we know everyone is feeling the pinch of inflation throughout the economy these days. The municipality is also dealing with escalating costs for everything it has to purchase. However, council decided it wanted to focus on keeping tax increases as low as possible. We looked everywhere for operational efficiencies and cost savings. We looked for opportunities to generate revenue other than raising property taxes. And we put off some planned expenditures until next year. In the end, we were able to keep the operational increase to 1.64%. Together with the 2.21% increase for Giants Head Road, we are proposing a total of 3.76% property tax increase for 2023. For the average home in Summerland, that would mean about an extra $65 in property taxes for this year. I will now turn it over to our Director of Finance, David Spedlichny, who will provide details of both the proposed operating and capital budgets.
Thank you, Mayor Holmes, for that introduction. And thank you all in attendance this evening for coming out. I'm hopeful that after this presentation and the opportunity you had to converse with staff and ask questions, that you'll all have a better understanding of the proposed 2023 budget. So the Mayor noted that the budget is one of the district's most important documents. Being the Finance Director, I'm probably a little bit biased, But I'd have to go a step further and say it's the most important document. And so my notes here say pause for a dramatic effect and wait for scoffs and eye rolls of senior staff. And I saw a few. We'll agree to disagree on that one. But in all seriousness, and to the point that the mayor made, the budget sets the financial framework in which the district not only collects but spends taxpayer dollars on the needs of the residents of Summerland. Before we delve into the dollars and cents of this presentation, I wanted to provide an overview of the different levers that Council has at its disposal when reviewing and ultimately putting forward the general budget. There's familiar levers such as service level changes, tax increases, or user fees that generate revenues, and we'll touch on these in a second. Sometimes new revenue sources are able to be accessed, like new fees for new services, or perhaps accessing grants for the district to address program needs. Additionally, there's the element of operational efficiencies within the administration itself. This can be doing more with partners such as community groups or finding lower cost solutions for the day-to-day operations, or perhaps sponsorships for some elements of program delivery. The third one, service level reduction, can also be a useful tool to reduce expenditures. This can be everything from shortening operating hours, frequency of services provided, and standards for things like snow clearing and landscaping. This leaves us with our final two levers, user fees and taxes. Both of these can be effective when used appropriately to address pressures, especially when the pressures themselves are the result of increased demands on the district for new or existing services. Fairness or equity in the approach taken is often a consideration between these two levers. User fees are best utilized when a specific service is accessed at the discretion or decision of a resident. General tax increase can be more equitable if the pressures are more of a general nature, such as contractual obligations or high interest rates that we're seeing right now. So during budget deliberations, Council utilized many of these levers in order to bring forward the budget that is being proposed today. The district's 2023 budget process began way back on August 18th, 2022. So 5.5 months ago we started this journey. Since that day, this budget's gone through countless transformations. When it was first compiled back in September, the operational deficit was $1.1 million, which would have required an 11.4% tax rate increase, which is still lower than Lake Country, but a big number. Lots of work went into lowering that deficit amount, which brings us to today. During Council's two budget meetings in January, they used some of the levers we discussed on the last slide to lower the overall operational deficit, thereby lowering the required tax rate increase to 3.76%. Now, some of the ways Council did this was by removing certain projects from the budget entirely, increasing revenues by allocating $160,000 of COVID funding and $82,500 of reserves to bolster our revenues. Council also looked at FTE position requests and altered hiring dates, which also reduced budgeted expenses. The net result of these decisions is that in order to balance this budget, a property tax revenue increase of 3.76% is needed. And as the mayor noted in his opening remarks, 2.12% of that increase was pre-approved by the residents of Summerland in order to service debt payments for the repaving of Giants Head Road. So this budget has come a long way since September, and that initial 11.4% tax rate increase that would have been required. And contrary to what our Prime Minister thinks, the budget did not balance itself. A lot of time, thought, and deliberation was utilized to bring forward this balanced budget. Some quick facts before we get into some details. The district's consolidated operational budget is $45.2 million, with an additional $25.9 million budgeted for capital. This consolidated amount, as the mayor noted, includes all four of the district's funds: water, sewer, electric, and general. In total, overall budgeted spending is proposed at $71.1 million in 2023. If we look specifically at the general fund operations, the proposed budget plans for revenues and expenditures of $19.4 million. 57% of that, or $11 million, is funded through taxation. This budget also includes, as I noted, $160,000 from the COVID-19 reserve and $82,500 from our savings. Our electrical utility contributes $500,000 to the general fund operations, which is the equivalent of a 5% tax rate increase. And just to note, a 1% tax increase in Summerland generates just over $100,000 in revenues for the district. At the height of summer, the district employs approximately 121 employees, 40 part-time and 81 full-time. So as we touched on in the previous slide, district operations are differentiated into 4 funds. Each fund provides services to residents and collects revenues to offset operating expenses. The 4 funds again were the water utility, the electric utility, the sewer utility, and the general fund. Today's presentation will focus on the general fund, as the 3 utilities were discussed at great length at the December 5th open house. And anyone who wants to see that presentation, it is on our YouTube channel, so you can look at it there. The pie chart here provides a breakdown of all the revenue sources budgeted in the general fund for 2023. Total revenues, again, are budgeted at $19.4 million. And as the chart shows, approximately 76% of all general fund revenues are generated from either taxation or user fees, which is very common in municipalities. And if you're wondering how I got to the 76%, it's property taxes, solid waste, recreation services, and sales of service. Those 4 items. Breaking down the 19.14 into smaller pieces, some items to note include new construction revenue is estimated at $94,800. And this is equivalent to a 0.95% tax increase. And if not for this, our proposed tax rate increase would be 4.71% and not 3.76%. The 2023 budget includes a new tax levy for the community-approved Giants Head Road borrowing. Annual debt payments are $211,829 and equate to that taxation increase of 2.12%. For the average home, this works out to be an increase in property taxes of $36.77. The budget also includes a new provincial grant in the form of the Local Government Climate Action Program. This program replaces a now defunct Climate Action Revenue Incentive Program, and it does have certain parameters that we are required to follow when on spending funds. Additionally, we've applied for 2 emergency program project grants, and if we're successful, they'll provide 100% funding for those projects at a revenue of $591,600. And the last item to note here, the proposed budget includes $985,000 in transfers from both reserves and savings. The majority of these transfers are specifically related to individual projects. As we've touched on a few times already, Council used the levers available and transferred $160,000 from that COVID reserve, as well as that $82,500 from savings. These transfers increased our revenues, which in turn lowered the operating deficit, which lowered the overall tax increase by 2.42%. On the expense side, the district is required to have a balanced budget, so our budgeted operational expenses are also $19.4 million. The pie chart provides a breakdown of the 9 distinct functions the district uses for providing services in the general fund. Each function is further broken down into cost centers, which are used for tracking expenses. So an example of this is protective services. The protective services function's overall budgeted expenses total $4.4 million, which are further broken down into 6 cost centers. RCMP with a budget of $1.96 million, fire $1.11 million, emergency measures $752,000, building inspection is $272,000, bylaw enforcement $221,000, and animal control at $80,000. So each of the 9 functions have these types of detailed cost centers associated with them. And our most expensive one is protective services, and our least expensive function is the cemetery at $161,900. Anyone looking for a more detailed breakdown of these 9 functions and the corresponding cost centers is encouraged to review this information on our website. And additionally, the center booth in the back there, the kind of tall thing with all the pie charts on it, also has these corresponding cost centers as well. When we compare the proposed 2023 budget to the approved 2022 budget, there's an overall increase of $1.5 million. Of this increase, $1.2 million is directly attributed to operational increases, which includes significant inflationary pressures. $211,800 is attributed to the annual debt payments for the Giants Head Road, and the remaining $107,000 is attributed to increased budget to reserve transfers, which are a result of increased revenue projections. When putting together annual budgets, departments begin with a baseline budget. So this means the departments use current spending levels as their baseline to prepare budgets for the upcoming year. This methodology ensures that the base budget from the previous year is maintained, with the only increases due to contractual obligations at that time. Now this is our starting point before other items are added, such as additional services and projects. So as you can see, the district's contractual increases alone were $468,900. And again, this is before any additional service level increases or projects or FTE position requests, and equates to 4.69% rate increase. Now in terms of third-party increases, the largest increase relates to the RCMP policing contract, which has increased $129,600. Some of the other larger third-party increases include our insurance premiums have increased $40,000. Our road repair contract has increased $33,000. Annual wood grinding at the landfill has increased $30,000. Our operator contract at the landfill has increased $10,000. And road salts for snow removal have also increased $10,000. Contractual bylaw increases take into account wage increases of $160,565. These are driven by and established by collective agreements and employment contracts. So to reiterate, before looking at any service level increases, additional projects or new FTE requests, our baseline budget increased by $469,000 over last year. Now there are times when council makes decisions in one year that have delayed financial impacts on the organization. This often happens with capital projects where it takes a year or two to build the physical structure, and only once it's built do the operational costs kick in. This delayed operational cost is the reason we see the organics processing facility, development software, and eco-village on this slide. So council made a decision 2 years ago to move forward with the organics processing facility, and with construction slated to be complete in the spring of 2023, budgets, the 2023 operating budget includes $90,766 of operating costs. Now, as that footnote notes, this does not include $62,270 for 8 months of a new landfill operator that is required to operate the facility. We'll touch on this on the next slide. In terms of the development software, in 2021, council resolved to move forward with a $368,000 grant application for a regional portal and development services software. The district was successful, and we've completed the RFP process and are moving forward with implementation. But in addition to the capital costs, there are the annual licensing fees of $61,150. To lessen the financial impact, we negotiated with the vendor to split that fee over 2 years. So the impact to the 2023 budget is $30,583. The $10,000 budgeted for the Eco Village is to prepare the district's Eco Village lands for potential land sales scheduled in 2024. A surveyor company is required to be retained to complete road closures and some subdivision plans. Another factor that can impact future budgets are grant applications. Oftentimes we're required to have council resolutions in advance of actually applying for a grant. Then we go through the application process, which then leads into waiting to hear if we've been successful or not. The application year and the approval year can often stagger our fiscal year. This is the reason we see the $487,000 on this slide. We're currently waiting to hear back from 2 grant funders on applications we put forward in 2022. And if we are unsuccessful, we will not be moving forward with the projects. So the proposed budget includes new additions of approximately $500,000. Of this amount, $184,300 relates to the addition of 3 full-time equivalent positions, as well as an increase to the fire department auxiliary hourly wages. So the positions themselves are a full-time equipment operator, and in this budget has been budgeted for 8 months. As we touched on in the previous slide and a few other slides, the organics processing facility is set to open in late spring. An equipment operator is required to ensure the facility is operational. The second position is a full-time maintenance worker, budgeted at 6 months. This position has been budgeted to assist the Works and Infrastructure Department with increased roads, sidewalks, and linear infrastructure. Additional resources are needed to adequately maintain them. This position will assist with road and sidewalk maintenance, including pothole patching, paving, and sidewalk repairs. They'll also assist with stormwater management, including culvert and drainage system assessments and repairs. In the winter months, this position will help with snow clearing operations. The third position, full-time landscaper, again also budgeted at 6 months. This position addresses recent demands, such as increased maintenance standards of our parks and ball fields, the inclusion of trails maintenance, repairing aging infrastructure, goose management, invasive weed management, tree maintenance, increased use of our parks and beaches due to COVID, as well as to operate the new beach cleaner that the district's purchasing. In the winter months, this position will also be an additional resource in snow clearing. The last item to note in terms of labor, the proposed budget includes $44,000 increase to the auxiliary fire department wages. This increase is a combination of increasing the hourly rates, but also adjusts the minimum call-out payment from 1 hour to 1.5. The last time any adjustments were made to these wages was in 2019. Now, in terms of the various projects of the $345,000, the most significant ones are $200,000 for a Fire Smart Community project. Now, this is 100% grant funded, so if we don't receive the funding, we will not spend the money. There's a budget of $82,300 for 9 recreation and cultural projects, $18,000 for level 3 building inspection assistance, $15,000 for the implementation of a crack sealing program, and $5,000 for 3 road safety audits. So what does this all mean? So in order to balance the budget, Council is proposing a property tax revenue increase of 3.76%. This is well below the new for 2023. When we look at funding capital infrastructure, our core financing mechanisms are reserves, grants, community contributions, and debt. Now, based on the 5-year financial plan being proposed, reserves and savings are budgeted to go from $21.4 million in 2022 to $7.1 million in 2027. Now, on the surface, this sounds like bad. We're depleting our reserves past the point where we should be. However, the positive is that because we're responsibly putting money away for future asset replacement, we are less reliant on debt borrowing and having to pay interest when these projects come forward. Now, this slide tries to capture Council's overall commitment to asset management in the general fund. The proposed budget includes transfers into reserves of $2.1 million in 2023. The district has a self-funding fleet reserve, wherein every piece of equipment has an hourly rate attached to it. As equipment is used, the cost center that uses it gets billed. This practice ensures that those that are using the equipment are paying for it. Now, additionally, at the end of the year, the net billings are transferred into the fleet reserve in order to replace equipment as it gets older. So in 2023, we're budgeting a transfer of $950,000 into this reserve. Excuse me a minute. The next reserve is the Asset Management Reserve. This reserve was created in 2016 by Council, and it's funded through 3 different funding mechanisms. The first funding source relates to the annual gravel lease and gravel royalties that the district receives. Based on that bylaw, these funds are directly transferred into this reserve. The amount budgeted for in 2023 is $150,000. The second funding source is directing specific contributions into this reserve. So over the years, Council has earmarked specific allocations that were directly transferred here. There was 1% in 2018, 2.5% in 2019, 0.88% in 2020, and 0.21% in 2022. So all of these relatively small percentage allocations over the years equate to a 2023 transfer of $383,500. And the third funding source relates to maturing debt. So as debt matures, instead of removing it from operations, the bylaw reallocates the annual payments so that it's added into this amount being allocated to the reserves. So for 2023, this equates to $416,000. The landfill, we're projecting $210,000 allocation. The money that we receive from Recycle BC, all of it gets put into this reserve to fund future landfill projects. The fire department has an annual contribution of $50,000, as well as the climate action reserve of $7,700. Another capital funding source is debt. So outstanding debt as of January 1st, 2023 is $15.6 million, with annual debt payments of $2.2 million. We've currently used up about a quarter of our borrowing capacity and are looking at $4.96 million borrowing in the next 2 years. The borrowing is for $3 million of that is for Prairie Valley Road reconstruction in 2024, and $1.96 million in 2025 for a landfill cell closure. There's also a possibility of borrowing for a new recreation center, which of course would be subject to public approval through a referendum. So as I noted at the very beginning of this presentation, the district's 2023 consolidated capital plan is $25.9 million. So just over 2/3 of that, $17.4 million, relates to the general fund. In terms of funding the 73 capital projects, we can see that the largest funding source, 62%, is reserves. The second largest funding source is debt, which is followed closely by grants at $2.6 million. The 7 items identified on this screen provide a summary of the major projects budgeted for in 2023. with some items having more than one project. And I'll kind of provide a listing of what these are. So we are budgeting for the purchase of 18 pieces of equipment, 16 of which are replacing current fleet. These replacements vary from work trucks to electric vehicles to a new road sweeper budgeted at $444,000. Funding for these replacements will come predominantly from the Equipment Replacement Reserve, which is fully funded in 2023. Road reconstruction. So the district is budgeting for 3 significant roadwork projects in 2023. Jubilee Road West from Kelly to Rosedale, Victoria Road from Ager to Dunham. This project will include drainage and sidewalk. And Dale Meadows Road from the entrance to Dale Meadows Field to Hadrill Avenue. So this project will also include the replacement of the water main through this section of road. So the overall cost of this project, including the water mains, is $3.3 million, with the road portion budgeted at $1 million. These projects are all being funded through reserves and will have staggered start dates throughout the year. I would direct any of you that have any questions about these 3 projects to our Works and Infrastructure table over there. And Joe and his team will be happy to answer any questions you may have. The district's budgeting 15 projects on its facilities in 2023 at a total budget cost of $1.9 million. These projects range from completing existing projects, like the replacement of 7 HVAC rooftop units at Municipal Hall, to upgrading all interior municipal lights to LEDs, replacing the arena and curling club chiller and head pipe, as well as demolishing 3 buildings. The next item, we've talked a lot today about the organics processing facility and its impact on the 2023 budget. Project construction began in 2022, and the budget includes $1.7 million to finish this project off. Once complete, the facility will enable the district to move forward with agricultural and residential food scrap removal from curbside collection, as well as at the landfill. This diverted material will be used to create a nutrient-rich Class A compost for agricultural and residential use. I did not write that, by the way. Emergency measures. The district is continuing to move forward with repairs caused by flooding. So repairs to guard trail were previously completed. However, additional repairs will be required in 2023. Repairs to Lakeshore Drive as well as Eneas Creek have also been identified and budgeted for in 2023. Estimated recoverable expenses from disaster financial assistance, or the province of BC, as well as grants, are budgeted at $562,400, so roughly half the cost. Now, like the organics project, we've heard a lot about Giants Head Road reconstruction this evening. As most of you are aware, the paving portion of this project was not completed in 2022 due to the early winter. So paving is anticipated to be complete in the spring of this year with a budget of $950,000 to complete that. And the last item, Giants Head Trail. So in 2022, phases 1 and 2 of this project were complete. The district was successful in a grant application last year that will provide us $1,234,000 in grant funding to complete phases 3 and 4. The overall project budget is $1.68 million, and it will span over 2 years. So the 2023 budget is $673,100. So should council move forward with a 3.76% increase, as noted earlier, the average property in Summerland will see an increase in property taxes of $64.80. Now this is based on assessment figures received from BC Assessment to date, and it does not take into account any tax shifts or assessment appeals. So again, this is important to note, as this amount could change should council wish to shift taxes or if assessments come in. Now, council will be reviewing tax rates in late February or early March. So this concludes our 2023 budget open house. Now, before I open the session up for any questions, I would like to take a quick moment to encourage residents that have not already done so to provide your comments regarding the proposed 2023 budget at budget@summerland.ca. Everyone's comments are important, and they will provide council with additional information prior to the financial plan bylaw adoption, which is scheduled for Monday, February 27th. There are also comment cards around the room, should people wish to use those as well. We do ask that in order for comments to be included in the final budget report to council, that we do receive these comments by noon on Tuesday, February 7th. So again, thank you for attending, and I'll now open the presentation to any questions. And I may call on directors to answer any that I can. Perfect, no questions. Oh. Here I thought I did a great job explaining everything.
No, I'm just curious, you talked about the $62,270 for the 8-month new landfill operator. Is that another contract, or is that one of our employees that we already have with the city?
So that is, it's a new position to the district. So it's a brand new position. It'll be a District of Summerland employee. All right, well, if there are no further questions of me, we still have some time. Please wander around and ask all these smart people in this room your questions, and I'm sure they'll have great answers for you, especially Lori. She really likes questions.
Can I ask you a question?
Uh-oh.
I'm not going to.
What's happening with the RCMP budget? So what is the increase this year, and are there ways we can influence that?
There are a lot of different factors that make up that increase. Overtime is part of it. The new collective agreement that the RCMP signed about 2 years ago is part of that. There are built into those costs, the RCMP fleet cost has gone up quite a bit, and we are charged a portion of that. Same with gas and all of those different types of things. Just as we're seeing increases, they're seeing increases as well. So those have all been put back on us. In terms of whether or not we have a lot of control, not a lot. It is a contract that we have with them through the province, and we can go to the province through UBCM and try to have those conversations at that table, but in terms of the municipality ourselves, not a lot.
If I'm going to ask a question that I often think about as a public person, even though now I'm on council, which is that we always think that our roads need more work done on them. And I know that every year we have projects that are being done. But when we look at people to give their inputs and their ideas, whether it's on paper or what they put it at budget@summerland.ca, are there ways that they can influence their particular road that they see a problem with, or a particular area that they're concerned with?
Well, residents can always come out to our budget meetings. They're always open. Council did have 2 in January, where all of the information was publicly available. If people had comments or those types of things at that stage, they could definitely have brought them forward. In terms of influence, there's a thing called a local service area, where a group of residents can, in a neighborhood, can petition the district to make upgrades or fixes to their roads and their infrastructure. That's it. It's a petition-based process. There's you have to have 51% of the, I think, the assessed value of all the residents around your area. There's work to be involved. There's a lot of work in it, but it's an avenue people could look at.
And I look at information and processes for us. And when I say, if I was a public member and wanted to influence how things happen, that's a very finite way of doing it. I know that we have our budgets. Is it possible for people to see where their areas fall in the future plan for refurbishments on our roads? Are they projected like 10 years out that people could see whether their road area is in that kind of, because I know we're doing it based on our asset management and knowing what roads are in worse condition. I'm just wondering if people can see that going into the future.
So people on the capital plan, which only goes out 5 years, people can see those projects. We're currently in the process, and I think it's coming to council pretty quick. We're currently in the process of having is it 20-year, Joe?
Yes.
Okay. We're currently in the process of having a 20-year plan done for our roads and water mains. So that plan will basically map out all of the roads in Summerland, when we anticipate paving them, and those types of things. So it's currently not available, but it should be coming to council in the next month or so.
Thank you, David, I didn't know that.
I do have a couple of questions. With respect to the two positions, oh, sorry.
We have a mic, so everyone can hear you.
You spoke of two positions. I saw where you're budgeting to have two new staff members. One, I think, was for 6 months, one was for 8 months. I gathered then that that's for this current year. However, going forward, those will be full-time positions and the budget will be for 12 months. So these positions going forward will be full annual positions.
That is correct, and there's actually 3 positions. 2 have been budgeted at 6 months and 1 has been budgeted at 8 months. But yes, you're correct. In 2024, they will be full-time positions budgeted at 12 months.
So at this point, we're seeing 3 new employees. Are there other new employees that the municipality plans to hire that we didn't see here or weren't fully explained here at this point?
No. One in the back.
Thank you. I'd just like to commend the members of the fire department that put together this budget for their costs. They've done a lot of work here. I don't know if anybody realizes, but they have some 25 to 30 auxiliary members that show up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I'm very pleased to see that they put forward a new proposed stipend for those members, and they've done a good job, and I hope that council will seriously consider what they put forward, because I don't think the community really realizes how much work that they actually do and the level of training that they have. And also like to thank the staff at the City Hall, the financial experts for bringing this forward, because our auxiliary members and our full-time staff, they do a tremendous job here in the community, and I think they're very much appreciated. And I thank you for members of council for considering their proposed budget. Thank you.
And he didn't say who he was. That was former Fire Chief Lloyd Niskanen. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, going once, going twice. I think we're done. Thank you, everyone, for coming.